The IQ test, the Stanford Binet, and some of those are the most used ways to test for giftedness. But there are many, many other ways to test for creativity and talented children and gifted children. One is that they are very often nonconformists. They like to think ahead. They don't have the same concept that their peers have. And it baffles them sometimes because they think that all children are as they are. And it's not true. So they have to be able to put themselves in a position of challenging themselves and the others. I mean, and also having an answer for children who don't understand them, and that must have been a real problem. These children also have a lot of interests, not only reading, but in all abilities, all phases of their life. They sometimes can't stand a lot of noise in the classroom or in their lives, but yet they can read a book in a hurricane and not bat an eye, which is... you can't see inside these minds, unfortunately, because it would make life a lot easier if you could for a teacher. They oftentimes are not, they get bored easily. Now, in second grade, they hadn't had the experience of many years prior to that to get bored, but some of them still were. And you had to be aware that what you were giving them was something that would light their eyes. And that was the best way you could tell it. One of my favorite ways to kind of get children, was to read Winnie the Pooh. I can remember even before working in the gifted program, there was a little boy in the back of the room that I had not gotten one sign that he was interested in anything in that room. And it really baffled me. And one day I started reading Winnie the Pooh. Well, his eyes just sparkled, and I had him from then on. But it was those are ways that you don't even know that they're going to work. But you see a light in the eye of a child who is challenged a little bit, and you do everything in the world to keep that coming out. Oh, curious. They are curious, and they ask a lot of questions. One day I took a group of children to the Snyder farm, and the parents went along. We could drive them at that pace, didn't have to go in the bus. And just as we were there, there was a calf being born. All the parents moved quietly away from the children, and there I was. Wow, what happened, Mrs. Miller? Tell me all about, why does that, all these strange things are happening? Well, that's what I mean by a teacher also being challenged by curious children. They're going to ask all kinds of questions, and you don't always have an answer that you can come up with in a hurry. But fortunately, there are sources, and thank goodness there are libraries. And there are people who can come in and talk to children. There are ways to go on trips to change the atmosphere. And I think changing the atmosphere is very important in a classroom, because they get all, they think everything's going to happen this tomorrow, and you have to fool them sometimes and change the atmosphere. They aren't always the neatest children in the world. I have one little boy who, by the end of school, he had just gotten new sneakers, and at the end of school, he was ready to get on the bus, and I said, "Where are your shoes?" He said, "I don't know." I said, "Well, you can't go home without your shoes. You just got them." He said, "Well, I don't know where they are. I had them a while ago." This was so typical of him. Nothing was ever in order. On Friday, when we cleaned out desks, his were always, we had to dump them, But finally, we found the shoes in the garbage can, and he was able to leave school. Then I had another little girl who was absolutely nothing was put together at the end of the day. When she went to go out the door, her hat was partway on. She was lucky to have her shoes on. Her scarf was tangled around. Her coat was halfway on. And I said to her as she was leaving, "Karen, you look so uncombobulated." She turned to me and she said, "Don't worry, Mrs. Miller." No, I said, "You look so discombobulated." And she turned around and said to me, "Don't worry, Mrs. Miller, I'll get uncombobulated."